High top sports where the takes don't miss. The prof with the stats, the champ with the fist. Water bringing fire, cowboy tie riding bold. Bulls calling bets, watch the stories unfold. And it's truly eyebrows running the show. It's high top sports, baby.
Let's get it, let's go. Good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to High Top Sports. Happy Tuesday evening to all of you beautiful people out there. Of course, as we anticipate, as we expect, a lot of things happened today in favor of the Florida Gators. We did lose one to the portal, which we will go over. And finally, somebody found a graphic guy, Rook, posted it in our Discord. I'm not sure who to give credit to, but it's what I've been wanting. It's a graphic that's showing what essentially is left on the table as of now. Now, we'll look at it more closely because the people that may not have a cross through them doesn't mean that they haven't hit the portal, just means that they still currently are a part of Florida. But we'll go over exactly who will all stayed, so we'll get a better visual of what's remaining. And something that I've been talking about a lot too is because again, a lot of people are concerned or maybe just a little bit nervous about the attrition that's happening. But something that I've said earlier on is like, look, this team was going to have to do a lot of self-reflecting and go into the portal, regardless if Billy stayed or went, because of the amount of talent that would be moving on, whether it was through graduation or to the NFL. And you'll be able to see that as well, too, about how much starting talent is just going off to the next level. Not even going to the portal, but actually leaving. So you're going to have your guys, excuse me, step up tremendously, right? Or, of course, go into the portal or both. And something we heard, again, Mark Long, Edgar Thompson, they had their podcast from the Orlando Sentinel. Golly, talked about a lot of interesting things. I'll go over a few that intrigue me. But go listen to the whole thing if you guys have time to do that. It's about an hour and 20 long. But something that we've talked on the show that we listen. I talk about a lot of things from just looking at from the things that we do know that a lot of people have access to, and then I kind of just try to put pieces together. And we have been saying on the show that I feel like the budget was mismanaged horribly. When I saw the guys getting cut, and you start looking around, and we did our GM show, and it's why I do the GM show. It's not necessarily to say how to spend it. It's so we can see things, and I'm a visual guy. When you looked at it from that perspective, you kind of realized pretty quickly that we were spending money on guys we shouldn't be spending money on, right? And not getting production out of others, right? It was a horrible combination. So they confirmed that in their podcast, which we'll go over as well too. But 270 people in here. Be sure to smash it, like it, do all the good stuff. Let's take a look at these two things here before we get into their takeaways, just so we can see visually again how things are moving on. So here's the offense so far, okay? And you can see who's been crossed out. These are guys that are either gone for good or in the transfer portal, and we can kind of look and say, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to circle back around. I would argue that a lot of guys on the offensive side of the ball are probably gone, okay? Please hold. Goodness gracious. I'm getting attacked in here. So the wide receiver on the left side there, you can see Eugene Wilson, which, again, when you start taking a look at this wide receiver room, you see how much money was being just throttled into this room unnecessarily and not being utilized. I mean, Eugene Wilson barely touched the ball for the first half of the season. Mizell rarely saw the field. Tunker didn't see the field at all. That's three guys. That was a lot of money. Top-tier wide receivers, all gone. Right side, Studevant brought in from the transport. I'm sure he wasn't cheap. Then, of course, Dallas Wilson and TJ Abrams, and Abrams is returning. So you've got those two guys. And then, of course, you have the other wide receiver, the slot there, VB3, Nashawn Montgomery, and Tank Hawkins all gone. So right now you have three wide receivers that are returning. That's not including the freshmen that are coming in, along with Justin Williams and Marquez Daniel, and I believe there might be one more. So you can see how much money was really just thrown into this wide receiver room. I also keep alluding to that you still have to go out probably and add a few more pieces, right? But you can see now where it stands currently in this wide receiver room, okay? Then you look at the offensive line, and this is kind of my big thing that I talked about. You see a lot of the X's here, right? Austin Barber, who's going to the NFL, Jake Slaughter to the NFL, Damian George going to the NFL, okay? All those are gone. Cam Waits also will be, I don't know if he'll go to the NFL, but he'll be gone as well. Those guys were gone regardless. So there's four offensive linemen already gone. Then they went through and they cut Marcus Maskell. I can't see who that Clem guy. That says a redshirt senior, so he looks like he's probably just gone actually too. Noah Portagante, and then Enoch Wangu. But remaining and which excites me is Faircloth, Najee Harris, Jason Zamandela, Big Rod, Caden Jones, Bryce Lovett, and they've got Westfall on the other side as well. Not to mention they've got about 3 guys coming in from the class. And again, this is something that we've talked about a lot, right? Where you've got to go. In my opinion, I'm thinking it might be the number might be 3 to 4, and it's 2 tackles and a guard for me. Okay, that's kind of how I look at it. And remember that conversation about the offensive line, because we talk about Jaden Baugh later on in the show. That's something that Edgar and Mark talked about on their podcast of where this plays a factor for them. Tight end, obviously, we know Hanson's gone. Livingston's still there. Amir Jackson, they don't have crossed off, as we know, because he came back. He signed, was in the portal, and returned. So that's a huge pickup there, in my opinion, on top of Hezzy Kent, who's labeled as a tight end. I think some people argue that he could play offensive line, but that's 3 tight ends in that room now, which that's probably good to go. Then, of course, the quarterback room, we've got, of course, Tramel Jones signed today, which was a massive sign, in my opinion. A lot of people were kind of like, oh, we knew that he was going to stay. I didn't feel very confident. If I got to be honest with you, I was concerned because from the reports that we're hearing, there is a lot of talk that they are going to go get 2 quarterbacks. More than likely Aaron Philo and then another experienced guy. So you're telling Tramel Jones, hey, we are going to get 2 more guys that we anticipate to be better than you. That doesn't mean they're going to be, but we are expecting these guys to be better than you. If for whatever reason you beat them out, for sure, but you're not guaranteed anything. And that's my thing, is where if you're able to pitch Tramel Jones, right, who was recruited by an entire different offensive scheme, and pitch him how he is going to work, and pitch to him that he is going to more than likely be second, possibly even third string to stay, I find it hard to believe that they're not having these same good conversations with other guys. And I think it's a huge pickup, to be quite honest with you, because that's a spot that was very easy to lose, especially with Will Griffin coming in. I mean, that, again, if you do go get Philo and you do go out another guy, that room, in my opinion, is extremely competitive with great depth. Aaron Philo, I think, provides more depth than people would truly realize because of his relationship with Faulkner. And because of that correlation, he may be new to our system and maybe new to our school and to the logo, but in working with Buster and how he can manage that offense, you could almost consider him a veteran transition, right? I understand he hasn't played with these wide receivers and these running backs and all those things, and timing has to play a factor into all of that. But you're going to have, honestly, with how much attrition goes on throughout the year now, you're going to have to learn a new room probably every year anyway. So I like the Philo pickup a lot. I really, really do. Again, I keep leaning on that Julian Sand-esque type at Ohio State, and it doesn't seem similar, but it is. He was behind Haynes King for 2 years. That's huge in my opinion. A solidified quarterback for 2 years. That's major development that we at Florida have not had. If we're being honest, when's the last time we had Kyle Trask? Okay, that was the last time that we had some kind of just sit behind the roster, grow, develop in the same system. When they got their opportunity, they kicked ass and took names. Since then, it's just kind of been the next guy, like, oh, this guy's good, and you saw some flashes, and we just kept calling for the next guy. I still believe you go get a 4th quarterback. Let's not get it twisted. But I am excited about the potential that could be there, okay? And then, of course, the running back room, Jaden Baugh, which is the big one that we're all waiting on. Trayan Webb's not on this list. He may not just maybe too long. Jacoby Jackson is one to keep an eye on. And then, of course, Duke Clark is another one. So that running back room still has potential to be extremely healthy. Remember, we did not get one of those running back in the recruiting class, so something to keep an eye on. But look, the portal's full of running backs. So, like I said, they're easy to pick up on if need be. Wide receiver Eric Singleton Jr. is someone to watch if he enters the portal, which looks like, based on an Auburn mod today, Auburn mod said earlier today. Yeah, I think I saw that elsewhere. I can't remember exactly where. Timeline's moving quickly, but Auburn had a massive blow today with the loss of, obviously yesterday, Cam Coleman, now today, Deuce Knight, which were 2 major losses. Eric Singleton, who played at Georgia Tech under Buster Faulkner, would be a massive pickup, in my opinion, if they're able to go and get him. And look, I find it interesting. We're going to look at a Texas mod here in just a little bit, because I am seeing a lot of other schools hear what we're doing, and it seems that we are not shy about tampering. There's also a senior safety at Kansas that Bender reported on a few weeks ago that we were poking at, or at least eyeing, that there's interest there. The cat hasn't even hit the portal, okay? So How is there mutual interest when he's not even he doesn't have the tag of looking to enter, right? Because I know technically nobody's in the portal. Everyone just has the expected to enter, right? So interesting stuff. Interesting stuff, in my opinion, all across the board there. So get a good idea of the offense. Again, you're going to have to go in the portal regardless. So if we take a look at this, right, really quick here, because everyone panics about what we lost. So let's take a look at what we lost. Well, the offensive line, we didn't lose any, in my opinion, to the portal starting depth. So the offensive line was going to have to be attacked regardless of what they cut or didn't cut. So I don't think anybody really was upset about that. Look at the wide receiver room from a production standpoint. Studervant was, again, in my opinion, a rotating door anyways. That's been a portal wide receiver since Napier has got here. So did we really lose on him going to the draft or whatever he goes and does? No, we didn't, because that's been, in my opinion, a rotating door. Eugene Wilson's another one that we have definitely will be losing production, but you've got VB3 there, and of course Justin Williams. And when I think about it like that, it's like, well, Eugene was a freshman. We found about you. We love Eugene. Then VB3 kind of overshadowed that. Can Justin Williams go and be that? And if you go get Eric Singleton, Eugene who? Right? Mizell, you can see his second slotted there, but we know his production. He just didn't see the field a lot for whatever reason. And then Tankora, most of you guys don't even know who that is. Nashawn Montgomery, I was very excited about and his potential. Tank Hawkins, we've seen him. We've seen flashes of him, but in all reality, didn't see the field much. Hayden Hansen, I know people kind of hate on Hayden Hansen with his droppies, but in my opinion, he was a very vital tight end. I think he blocked very well. He had his days, but I think he was a solid tight end for the offense that was needed. I don't think that he would probably fit in this offense, but I think with bringing back Amir Jackson and Tony Livingston, you still have a lot of depth there. And then, of course, the quarterback room, you're losing DJ Lagway and Harrison Bailey, which I don't think anybody's really upset about. So my point to show you this is, like, whenever it starts to panic, you take a look at this, and you're like, okay, well, maybe there isn't as much, production leaving like we thought, right? We're just seeing names fly around, but when you look at it like outside the starters, right, which you can't control, it's replaceable talent. Okay, now let's take a look at the defense side of the ball here really quickly. This is where it gets, I think, a little more sticky. And again, right across the rip there, Devin Moore, NFL, Tyreek Sapp, NFL, Micah Brewer, transfer portal, Caleb Banks, NFL, George Gums, NFL. Okay, and so that was, again, this defensive line was going to have to take that next step, which we saw a lot of guys take a step forward this year. Brendan Bett was one of them. Jamari Lyons was another. Obviously, McLeod was a big one that had a big year. Mabachi was a big one as well. And then, of course, Baror was one that we were hoping to maintain. But even, again, today at Edgar's podcast, they said that he just continues to ask for too much. And, that is what it is, and that's going to be a place. Regardless, in my opinion, you're going to have to go get one or two guys. But that is what it is. So on the edge side, of course, we've got Woods that's in the portal, and that is something that we'll get into in just a little bit more details here in just a minute. But we've got Cameron James, who we know is resigned. LJ McCray is officially resigned now, which is huge in my opinion. So both those guys are back. Wiggins has not been announced yet. That's one that I'm keeping an eye on. I would like for him to come back. Again, a freshman that didn't have much production, but you still don't always want to be chasing after these guys. And I think that that's where you got to really manage the budget. So Wiggins is a watch, and of course we got KJ Ford coming in that room as well. So it's a young room. And I've said this, even if we were to keep Woods, it was a room that you probably needed to really kind of have some self-reflection of, like, do we have, certified production in this room? Do we need to go get another guy? I was saying yes, even with Woods. So it looks like they're going to have to go regardless, because if he doesn't return. Brian Taylor, he's obviously moving on to the next level. And then another big one today, who was one of my favorite players, was Aaron Gates. Again, this guy was a Gator through and through, but dealt with a lot of injuries in his career in Florida. And it kind of falls into that Sharif Denson where they're going to be expensive. Have they kind of hit their ceiling of what they're going to do? And so if you think that they kind of hit that potential, it's like, look, I think you're great, and I know what you're asking for. I just can't give it to you. And I think that's where probably that back and forth is, of where it is. And again, this is where we kind of had this conversation today of, like, we'll just pay him. Like, that's not how to work. You can't function that way. There has to be a budget. And we're going to get into the budget here in just a moment too, that Edgar and those guys talk about as well. Then, of course, safety, Alfonso Allen, I believe he announced that he's returning, which I was excited about. They're looking at multiple safeties in the portal, as we've said. Bryce Thornton is returning, and Caraway was a transfer and is gone and away anyway. So nobody was sad about Castell. Excuse me. And then, of course, your linebacker room, which is a unit. All those guys outside of Ty Jackson, is, from my understanding, are all returning. All returning. So, again, when you start taking a look at it, that cornerback room, Javier Flowers announced that he is staying. DeJon Johnson announced that he is staying. Kermani McClain, we have no answers. And Ben Frank, we have no answers. Or Ben Hanks, excuse me. Even if those guys were to stay, we talked about it on our GM show, you got to go get a lockdown corner. You have to. And you've got some studs coming in Caden Hall, CJ Hester, in that cornerback and safety room from this class as well, that'll probably fight some of these guys, right? And we saw freshmen kind of be able to slide in and do their things right away, plus the kid that he stole from LSU as well. I can't think of his name at the very moment, so keep that in mind as well. But even if they were to maintain, again, Kermani and Ben Hanks, I said they have to go get a top-tier guy. So nothing changes there. They're going to have to do it regardless. So again, the core is still here. We've got 2 days until this thing busts wide open. We'll see. But they've done, in my opinion, a pretty damn good job of working on retention and keeping the core guys. This was always going to be a factor. I think that even if Napier were to stay, not that anybody would have stayed that, but I think a lot of people are like, oh, we should have done this because look at this thing fall apart. Still 4-18. You got to get it down to bust it down to the hinges and work through this thing. So that's where it's at thus far. Quick super chats. Oh my man, two of them here, and then we'll get into a couple more things before we wrap this thing up. Short little show here tonight, but I wanted just to pop in because there's a lot of moving stuff. So positive retained news never is loud with dumb fans. Yeah, and that's why I think it's important to go over the positive stuff. People love to glorify the negativity, but a lot of massive things were done today. The officially re-signing LJ McCray, Tramel Jones was massive. Like, the people just kind of brush that off. Like, you can't just say, oh, we expected that. Well, no, we didn't. I don't expect anybody to sign. Like, that's a lot of work. You have to resell somebody on an entire new dream and project of what could be. There's Kermani McClain, or excuse me, Javari Flowers, DeJon Johnson, Lagonza Hayward. Those are Bryce Thornton. Those are all massive keeps that they all worked out in these last 48 hours. So very, very pumped, and those things should be, respected for sure. $50, my man from Glen Tiger. To the people who panic for every portal enter or start saying fire the coach before even his first game, changes will happen, even if it's uncomfortable. When the season starts, then we will see the product on the field. Yeah, and again, I think the reason why I like doing these shows is like the point isn't necessarily to spin it or anything, but just to be educated. But you have to understand that we are. Most people, we like to have there's an action and we like to react. Well, right now, we can't react to anything in the sense of fixing the problem. All we have is just things going out. And so it feels like we're losing things, and we are, but you have to, right? This is anticipated. So I wanted to talk about this. Let's do this, and then we'll talk about Edgar's podcast. So this is coming from a Texas mod. Jaden Woods is going into the portal, but he's going to meet with Florida early next week, which obviously follows the new year, which is well after the portal. At least that's the plan. So obviously once that portal opens up, things can get way more wild in the sense of what's being outreached to him. I'm sure he has an idea already of what's going on, but I like this coming from Texas. That was probably the reason I believe that, because Texas was favored to land him, and they were like, look, we feel good about it, but he said he wants to meet one more time. So that's promising to me. Because again, we heard it wasn't a money thing. Maybe it's a scheme fit. Maybe it's just a conversation of feeling like, hey, this we really like you. We want this thing to work. Let's get after it. So let's talk about money. Let's talk about what these guys, Edgar and Mark Long, were talking about. Obviously, Mark Long and Edgar Thompson. Those guys are beat reporters. You hear them constantly on. They'd be asking them the dog questions from time to time. I gave them a lot of flack over the last couple of years, but I do respect it because honestly, when we wanted the hard questions, them boys weren't afraid to ask it. All right, I will say that. They talked about where was I going? Here's Jaden Baugh. I lost my train of thought here. They talked about the budget, which I thought was important, but there was one thing that I had that I just completely slipped my mind. We'll hop into NIL because that was something that we wanted to talk about anyways. On what are we spending? It was a big conversation this morning in our call-in show. Everyone thinks we're not spending, or are we spending enough? That continues to be a point of conversation. And again, we put our budget out there because I don't know. So now that we feel like we have a little more clarity, we can probably adjust our numbers a bit when we do our GM show. So they said the rev share number is about $15.8 million, which we thought was $13 million. So we were $2 million off there. And they said that you add another 10 to 15 of an NIL. That's your boosters, that's your collective, etc. So that's puts year one goal roster payroll around $30 million, which was the number that we were hearing if Lane were to come. So it sounds like they're in that ballpark. And that's why I also kind of put it to that 25 to 28, because you go plus or minus $2 million, and there you are. Then the internal build plan they described as year two, $40 million, year three, $50 million. That's because I believe is where things are headed. I'm glad I kept ready, because here's where the point was, where they said about Billy Napier. So they said Billy Napier had inflated the market inside the Florida's building by overpaying guys on a 4-8 roster. So this new regime is trying to reset an inflated roster economy. That's what they said in their podcast today, which is what I've been hammering home on. And that was just, again, when you started to look, and this is why I like to do the GM exercise, because when I started looking at it, I was like, and you hear certain things, you hear certain numbers that this guy's being paid more than this guy. You look at the market, you're like, math ain't mathing, big guy. Like, you have holes in areas. You're trying to, look, you can have inflated areas, but you better make up for it in development. You better make up for it in coaching. And we know damn well that wasn't happening. And so I think that's where people have to kind of relax, because there's a lot of names, a lot of flashiness. Eugene Wilson, Dallas Wilson, VB3, Lagonza Hayward, Ben Hanks, Jameer Grimsley, DJ Lagway, those were expensive pieces. Go back and say those names in your head and look at production on the football field. Look at production and look at total just total impact, right? We talked about today why I love Wood so much, because edge rushers are so expensive and so valuable because they impact every single play. More than an interior defensive line, because those guys are more there just to clog things up, right? You can get away with a less talented guy if he's just big enough to fill in the hole. I'm not saying that you want to go that route, but you understand what I'm saying. If you watch ball, you understand it. Edge guys can make a tremendous impact. They can literally single-handedly take over, not necessarily as a game. I mean, if they're dogs, they can take over. But a series, no question. We've seen it plenty of times this year. Cassius Howe's a big one that we always go back to. So hearing them say that was very interesting. It's always kind of cool when we talk about it. And again, when I talk about it, I'm just going off of what I'm piecing together. And it's like, this doesn't make sense. Well, shit, if it stinks, it's probably shit, okay? And it stunk, and I was like, this don't look good. So there we are on that. And then the last little nugget here, and again, the promising thing too, I think what a lot of people should be excited about is that budget being at a healthy cost, which is what a lot of people were questioning and wondering, and I think that's where it needs to be. You guys could argue that it needs to be more. That's fine. I'm not gonna get into a pissing contest about it. I think $30 million is plenty of money to field a roster that can be successful if it's coached well enough. As for Jaden Baugh, and this is something we've said multiple times on this show, that we've offered 1.3, the Text offer is 1.5, and so it's about a $200,000 difference. To me, that's not a deal. That's not a deal breaker. But basically, he's looking to see how they navigate the offensive line additions, which I respect tremendously, and I think he should. And that's something that I've said a multitude of times. Like, look, it can't be about the money. And you're like, why not just pay him $200,000? Well, you can just say that too. But again, there is a budget. I keep telling you that. So if I would say, hey, Baugh, I'm going to save $200K, and I'm going to put it on top of one of these linemen where I can spread it out and maybe put an extra $100,000 there, $100,000 there, and get me the offensive lineman, so you do stay, so you are successful. We talk about like, hey, pay the guy, right? Let's show him his appreciation. We're paying him $1.3 million. He'll be one of the highest, if not the highest paid running back in college football. Okay. We drafted you and recruited you and groomed you and developed you when you were a 3-star. Nobody else wanted you. Okay. Let's meet in the middle. And I think that's where it's not always just about paying, in my opinion. I think that there's got to be a middle ground. And then you're like, well, what's 200,000? Okay, what if I go to 1.5? And then they go to 1.7. You've got to have a line. So I respect it's like, hey, here's what it is, dude. I'm not, and not to mention, if you go to Texas, you're paying a state tax. So it's 1.3 anyways. He's going to get away with 1.3 from Texas. And I respect him taking his time. I respect him doing his due diligence of like, look, I want to make sure that if I stay here, which I would love to, I want to be successful. I want to have, this is my money year. It's this contract year. I like, people are going to forget what I did last year if I completely lay an egg this year. And it's true. They will. He's got to go out there and touch 1,000 yards again with multiple touchdowns and have a huge impact for him to be a top premier back. Can he be what Bijan Robinson was and Ashton Jeanty was next year in the draft? I don't know. Could be. Depends on how much work he puts in, and depends on the line that we put out there and what he's able to do. I think he shows an incredible patience, incredible speed at times. Is he the same as an Ashton Genty and a Bijan Robinson? I don't know. What Bijan did last night, bringing your boy home a championship, is something I ain't seen in quite some damn time. So I say that because those obviously guys were first-round draft picks. I don't think he'd be a first-round draft pick, but running backs going first round, you got to be an absolute unit. But could he be a very high third round, late second round? No question. That's very good in the running back world. So. And all those are very important. That's the difference. If I'm Jaden Baugh, that's what I'm looking for, because that is a $500,000 to $1 million difference between those rounds, right? That's where your paydays genuinely and truly matter on top of the schedule or the contract that you were able to acquire along that as well. $5. Fans need to take a breath and relax. Just stay positive. It has to get better. Remember, we were 4-8. We were 4-8. Can we talk about that? I appreciate it, Bubba Gator. $5. How much for the cream hoodie? Not through YouTube where they take 30%, but can I have MLPP or whatever? They don't sell them anymore. Well, I'm not selling this one, so I don't have them. That's the only one I got, and I ain't selling it. But I appreciate the the love. I do. So there's no state income tax in the state of Texas. No, what is it? There's something that. There is. You're right. There is an estate tax. I should have known that. I thought there was something there. Either way, $200K is nothing, regardless. Okay, and the grand scheme of things, and you can say, "Well, Sean, it's nothing for us." No, it is something to us because we can go and put it elsewhere. I'm saying, talking to the individual. If you're choosing to leave, $200K is not going to be life changing for that individual. $200K can be life changing if it allows us to use it for spending on the team and put it in the proper place. So. All great stuff. Again, take a look at that podcast. Again, they talk about a lot of different things in regards to just who they're looking to keep and their thought process of the room as well. But I'm excited to see. We've got a couple more days left and see how we attack this portal. I hope we hit the ground running. The fact, again, and the reason why I feel very optimistic, and it's not just because I'm playing Disney Gator. I feel calm because I do feel that what Coach Summerall said in his presser, he has backed it up to this point. If we're being honest, he has. He's come in. He's trying to still win now. He shows me that with the guy that he's trying to retain. You can't get mad if someone just chooses to leave. I mean, you do whatever you want. But I feel that we have done our due diligence to keeping key players. Well, from what we have heard reported from multiple sources, we have done our due diligence. Now, you may think that Sharif Denton and the other guys are. I don't think that they had those guys as priorities. So that's between you and yourself to figure that out. But I think they've done a good job there. I think they've done a good job with the staff. And now the next phase of this is going to be, how do they attack the portal? Well, the fact that we are targeting guys that aren't even in the portal is more than I've ever heard in my entire life. The only other time we heard that was with Pup Howard. That was the only other time, and that was like hush-hush. That was like secret type shit, like last-minute Larry type nonsense. And that was like there was a homegrown thing. Like that was the only one, right? So a lot of stuff there to keep an eye on, and I expect hopefully we can close some more things down tomorrow. But most likely, it probably seems like a lot of these guys are going to just test that market, get into the portal. Just because they go in the portal doesn't mean it's over. I do believe there are some that are crossed off on this list, and we'll take a look at them. I'll tell you who I think is gone. DJ Lago ain't coming back. All right, you can kiss that one goodbye. I think Hayden Hansen, he ain't coming back. Eugene Wilson, he ain't coming back. Mizell, he ain't coming back. Tencora, he ain't coming back. KD Daniels, he ain't coming back. Montgomery and Hawkins, they ain't coming back. So for those guys, I think they gone. As for the defensive side of the ball, Sharif Denton has pouted since he's left, so he ain't coming back. But Brewer, I think that one, the verdict's still out. I don't think that one has a bad taste to it. I think he's just going to test his market and see what he's able to get. And Jameer Grimsley, I have no idea. That one's probably up in the air. Aaron Gates, I think he's gone. Sharif Denton. Pup Howard's gone. He's kind of acted very similar to Sharif Denton, in my opinion. And that's, see you later. No big deal on that one. Jordan Castile is gone. And, but yeah, I think your Woods is your big one to keep an eye on. I'm possibly circling back on top of guys that aren't in the room yet. So, look, great little pop-up show here. Wanted to get in there and talk about all those things. Hopefully, we, cleared the air a little bit, had a good conversation. Haven't done the solo show in a while. Always enjoy these types of show. But y'all be good, be safe. Have a happy New Year's Eve tomorrow. Have some fun. We will not have a show tomorrow night. Tomorrow morning we will. Tomorrow night we will not have a show. So 2 days, 2 best days of the week, we will be missing. We do our little kids' little New Year's Eve party, so that's when we rock and roll with. But y'all be good, be safe. We'll see you tomorrow morning if you guys want to tune in for that. 7:45, 8 a.m. Will be a good show. We'll do a little preview for the college football playoff games. But smash it, like it, do all the good stuff. Peace and love, baby.
Top sports where the takes don't miss. The prof with the stats, the champ with the fist. Water bringing fire, cowboy, tie riding bold. Bulls calling bets, watch the stories.